You said in passing that one should invest in an asset before you get into a liability.
Yeah.
What does that mean for someone who's listening, who's going, that sounds interesting?
Okay, so an asset is something ultimately that you're buying that will give you a return, right? So it will give you either profit, it will give you some kind of, or it will appreciate in value. So for example, when you talk about investing in assets, of course, the basic one that everyone always talks about is like property. But even aside from property, there are people who invest in gold, for example. You buy gold, or even buying Bitcoin. And let me not say Bitcoin, but buying some coins. People see it as a form of asset, right? Because the idea is that you're holding on to it, it's going to increase in value, and at a later date, you can sell it for much more than you bought it. And so even down to things like artwork, right? Some people buy wine. There are different things you can invest in. Ultimately, for the price to increase, even like buying shares in a company, the idea is that you want to have something that you own, and at a later date, you're going to sell it, get rid of it, and it's going to have increased in value. That I personally recommend that everybody prioritizes having that over a liability. And so you heard that I called the car a liability. Why? Because at the end of the day, no matter how flashy, how expensive, how wonderful your car is, unless it is vintage, which we're not talking about, the moment you start to drive it, it reduces in value. The moment you take it out from the shop, it reduces in value. Over time, yes, it will not necessarily go down to zero. So at some point you can sell it in the future. If you bought a car for £15,000, for example, in 5 years' time, maybe you'll be able to sell it for 10K. So it's not going all the way down to zero, but it has decreased, right? Yeah. Which is fine. Like in life, we have to buy liabilities. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should never buy liabilities. Things will decrease in price. You're using it, right? So you're using the value of the car, right? But with a house or with assets or with gold or with shares, the idea is that in 5 years' time, rather than have decreasing from 15,000 to 10,000, your 15,000 might now be 20,000. Yeah. So for me, when you prioritize increasing or buying assets first, it means that when you then buy liabilities, you're kind of offsetting the loss by the fact that you also have increasing assets.
Yeah, that's a really good starting point. Again, speaking to some younger people, and I would love you to speak to this, their fear, if I could channel my inner Gen Z, is, okay, that's great. Of course, a house is an asset, and that's the most important one. You go on social media, you can't escape people talking about it. However, it feels like such a big asset. And it seems like the system isn't really set up for you to be able to afford that asset. So why don't I just enjoy myself, essentially?
So this is the thing. You don't have to buy a house, right? Nothing in life is compulsory. You don't have to buy a house. Taxes. Yeah, taxes, that one's compulsory. You don't have to buy a house. And you're right. A house is a massive asset. It takes a long time to save for it. Even when you get it, it's a big responsibility, blah, 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 blah. You can buy other things like investing in the stock market, buying shares, S&P 500, that kind of stuff is another way of you. And you can invest from as little as £10, £100, £20, whatever you've got. So if you are investment minded, investment thinking, there is a level at which you can invest without you having to break the bank or feel like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. And even before investing, savings. So for me, investing is the next level after savings. Before you even start investing, you should save, right? You should have something for a rainy day. Life happens, emergencies will happen. And so for me, I also think that one of the foundational pillars for like managing your finances, we talk about budgeting, but one of them is having a savings culture. When you get money, you should have a culture whereby, okay, I've gotten £100. You're not thinking of how to spend the entire £100. Like you need to save some of it. Yeah. So you should have a culture of saving for the future, for when an opportunity presents itself. You want to be able to play, or even just for a rainy day.
Yeah, that's really good. So if you like that video, there is one way you can help us. And you know what it is? I want you to hit the subscribe button. We are trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. As we get there, and as you subscribe, we can bring on more guests. We can level up the production of what we're doing. And it's the one way you can ensure that we can keep creating videos like this in the future. So do it now. Hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell, right? But also drop me a comment. Let me know if you like this video, if you want more things like this, and that way we can keep learning. So thank you so much for supporting us. See you in the next video.